Wonderboy has a response for Rakhmonov. Now, here's Wonderboy's idea, and golly, I wish he could get it. Here's his idea. Let's do a tournament. Going to throw himself in there. He's going to throw Nick Diaz in there. He's going to put Masvidal in there. He's going to put Rakhmonov. We're going to do a four-man tournament. Now, don't get lost in those names. Don't get lost in the idea of the tournament. Boy, I like where Wonderboy's going with that. And why can't we get tournaments? I mean, I give Scott Coker so incredibly much credit for doing this Grand Prix, but it's a tournament. There's constantly a tournament. It's one of the few organizations where you don't have to sit around and debate who the best guy is. They actually had a competitive architecture known as a straight line bracket, and they played it out. I would love to see our sport get to a place that was more like the Olympic Games, by the way. I would love if we played it all the way till third. I really do mean that. We don't give any credit to a silver medal. We hate that around here. And we don't give any credit to a bronze medal, so we don't even try to find out who it is. The closest that we get is a ranking, right? Somebody goes 20, 30, 40 years, they keep a magazine, they get to show it to their grandkid that their name was in a top 10. That's a real thing. I know guys from the boxing world that have done that, and I can tell you, as the guy that was looking at it, I saw it, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. This guy was ranked number 7 in the world at one point in his life. Like, it's a very cool thing, but it's as close as we get. I don't know if we would hate that concept. I don't know if we had the bronze medal match coming out for a tournament that anybody's going to frown on it. Now, I may not get my way on that. I might even be being a little silly on that. But I will share with you, I do like the idea. I'm not kidding about it. Even though I don't think it's ever going to happen, I do like that idea. You get your two semifinals and they lose and they go match up with each other on the same night that your semifinal winners. Let's take a look at what Wonderboy's saying, though, at the tournament. Tournaments are so important. They're so important for sport. They take the politics out. It's one thing that a promoter will have a very hard time to do, which is why I credit Scott Coker so much. You don't know if this is going to be your main event, but it's not the two names that you want. It's not the two big names. It's not the right guys that advanced. So it's a very, very tough spot. But before you even get to that from the promoter's standpoint, you go back to what Wonderboy is talking about. Okay, let's grab these 4 guys. Wonderboy's kind of telling you, I don't love the idea of fighting Rakhmonov. However, I'll do it. But put us in a tournament, and that's the way it advances. Otherwise, find somebody else. I get that, and I respect it. And we used to do this. We even used to do it in one night. It was 8-man tournaments. If you go back to 1993, the UFC used to be contested with 8 guys in a straight line bracket. You start out in the quarterfinals, you advance to the semis, you go off into the finals. Now, they stopped doing that. And the reason they stopped doing that is guys got a lot better at fighting. It would be extremely common in those quarterfinal rounds that it's less than a minute. And it was generally always less than 3 minutes. So you come in, now you're in the semis, there's another stoppage, you go into the finals. So a guy that's in the finals, or a guy that even had 3 fights in one night, has fought less accumulatively than 15 minutes, which is just what a standard fight is. Once guys started getting good, once guys started getting better, all of a sudden those 40-second fights were turning into 4 minutes or 9 minutes or 10 minutes. But now you got black eyes. Now you got a busted nose. Now you got a swollen up ear. Now your hand hurts. And you're only into the semifinals. It was just one of the things where the guys got so good we couldn't do that anymore. You just had to match them up. They even called it super fights back then. When it was just one guy against one guy in one night, because that was the rarity of our sport, we even called it a super fight. It was fancied and it was featured and it was this big deal. And now we just went to all super fights and got to the point where that wasn't so super, it wasn't so impressive anymore because it was the new normal that we even quit calling it super fights. We just call it the fight. All right. That was a really brief and fast history of that. However, I personally think there's still room for the tournament. I think there's evidence of that because Scott Coker is doing it at all times, and not to mention the PFL. You may love the PFL. Wherever you stand on the PFL, there are things to be studied in it, and there is anomalies that only they're getting away with. Like giving a guy a schedule, and by a guy, I mean their entire roster, giving them a schedule and telling them 12 months in advance specifically when you are going to compete. And the PFL doesn't deal with this whole owie, this whole visa issue, this whole training camp was too short. They just don't. The guys show up. They all agree it ahead of time, and no matter who advances, they go and show up. And it's a really interesting phenomenon. I mean, the PFL and how they can keep a card together, better than any other organization out there can keep a card together, not to mention they're doing the hardest possible thing, which for some reason the guys just don't want to do, which is a tournament. I don't fully understand that concept. The guys that come into this sport came, maybe it was a jiu-jitsu background, but that was all straight line tournaments. Maybe they had a wrestling background. That was all straight line tournaments. Maybe they wanted to be in the Olympic Games for boxing, something along these lines. Those are all straight line tournaments, but somehow when they get into the pros, they don't want to do this anymore. And the PML has an amazing phenomenon of keeping those fights together. The reason I bring that to you, we can't do what Wonderboy is talking about. No promoter would be foolish enough to put this bracket together within the UFC because those guys aren't going to show up. The same way as way back in 1993 when they started this, and by 1995, you couldn't get the guys to show up that night. You'd have a tournament, you'd have guys wait in, you'd have them in the back in the finals, and they wouldn't walk through that curtain. They're in the arena. I'm hurt, I'm this, something, they don't make the walk. Imagine that. Now fast forward. You're going to go to this tournament, everything's going great, you get the right names, they will find some reason to not show up, and now the whole thing's gone up in smoke. What do you do if you're the promoter? Oh, let's just reschedule it? No other sport works that way. Just to put in perspective for you, one of the reasons I hate when somebody pulls out, I don't understand the concept of it. No other sport works that way. We always want to compare ourselves to somebody else. Game 1 through 7 of the NBA Finals, should it need to be played out all the way to the final game, it's already set. It's already set. What date that will be. Who's going to broadcast it. What time tip-off is. All of that is already set. And if you only get to Game 6, you take it off the calendar. The Super Bowl for next year is already set. And the year after that. The date of the badminton gold medal match for the Olympic Games in 2024 is already set. Right now. They will go through with it. They will contest it. A champion and a medal will be given out, including if somebody doesn't show up. You will have a forfeit. This is going to be contested now. And for some reason, in the history of my lifetime, I can't give you one example with any of those sports that I've just stated for you where somebody had an owie. Somebody didn't have a training camp. Somebody had a visa issue. I can never remember one of those excuses coming into any sport that I've ever viewed except for MMA, which is supposed to have the tough guys. And I love what Wonderboy's saying. Not to mention I credit him. I get why he wouldn't want to go against Rakhmonov right now. I really do. It's a really hard thing. When you're a former main eventer and title challenger, now you're getting called out by a younger guy. It's just a hard spot. But Wonderboy didn't back down. He didn't say no. As a matter of fact, he said the opposite. He said yes. He added a suggestion, which is of a tournament. I love the idea. And you're not going to get, here's my overarching point that I hope that you guys are understanding as I'm dancing around on this thing. You're not going to get a promoter to do that. You're not going to get Dana White to go grab 8 guys and call it a tournament or a Grand Prix and play this things out. For the reasons that I just stated and how many times he's been bit in the ass by other guys that for some reason can't show up one of the 3 days of a year that they're called upon to show up. And the only chance that you would have, it's a very outside chance to get Dana to go, all right, I'll do it. I know this is going to cost me a ton of money because I know you guys aren't going to honor your word. I'll do it. The only way is if you got a group of guys together, and Wonderboy's case, he's putting 4. I don't have a problem with 4. I would love to see 8, but I think that's some nostalgia within me. I think I go back to the days I was a fan in 1993 and there happened to be 8. We can call it 4. But if you went and got those 4 guys ahead of time to then come to Dana, if they came up with the plan, they put their names in it, and they came forward, it would be something that he would consider at least differently. Maybe Wonderboy's kicking this off. I mean, he threw himself in there. He only needs 3 other guys to say yes. It would appear that Rakhmonov's open to it just about anybody. Now, whether that turns into Masvidal and that turns into Diaz, how you're going to draw the bracket, there's plenty of conversations here. But there is a way, there's at least an outside chance worth a discussion that if you could find the guys, and it's got to be in that order. It's not going to be Dana coming to the guys. It's going to have to be the guys coming to Dana. And I would be curious who signed up for that. Whether managers actually got on phone calls and everybody shook hands, whether they did it on social media right in front of the whole world, I would be very curious. I feel as though Wonderboy's gone first. His hands are clean. Whether he ends up there with Rakhmonov or not, Wonderboy's hands are clean. He answered it, he said yes, and he offered a suggestion. I think now it's on Masvidal and Nick. or on other 70-pounders to say, hey, let me be part of this tournament. What are the stakes? What are they going to put up? Is it just going to be a Grand Prix? Is it just going to be a belt? Is it just going to be us for fun? Is it going to just be us, the audience, challenging fighters to do it on the off chance that they would actually show up and follow through with what they agreed upon? Which is more than we could reasonably ask anybody in the alleged tough guy business.